Good evening, everybody. I am Isaac Yepes with the UTEP College Republicans, and we are here with DoctorRandomercam. He's probably one of the smartest guys on YouTube, even though
for heaven's sake.
he has an extensive vocabulary, even though he doesn't read, and we'll get into that later. It's something really interesting to me. How are you, man?
Oh, good. That's a hell of an intro. It's like when you introduce a comedian saying, "This is probably one of the funniest guys on the scene." Oh, thanks, man. No,
I don't mean to put pressure on you,
but I can read, shall we say? And I don't like reading long things. The longer the book, the more I'll sort of balk at the prospect of reading it. Something to do with my attention span. I can't concentrate on things for that kind of time span. Although weirdly, if it's a much smaller time span, I prefer text. I'm much better in a text chat than I am in a voice chat normally. I'm sort of terrible on the phone, but quite good with message rooms or what have you. If I have a little bit of time to think.
That's very interesting because normally it's like you're either completely audio or not or something, and you seem to be all over the place.
I know. That's a very charitable way of describing it. Thank you.
and you're not.
They're both, media that have their function. They're both different ways of expressing things, sort of graphics and sound. And I try and study both, and there's ways they don't mix in my head.
Yeah, and you're not half bad with a guitar. I think your video earlier this week or last week, the face you were making in some of the still shots that I remember, it made you look kind of like disgusted, but also like pondering something deep. I forgot what the songs were about, but damn, It was
the response to Quakehead stuff, was it?
Oh yeah, that's right. You threw in some nice finger picking though. I gotta hand it to you. And I think that there was a sweep in there, maybe two.
Yeah, that's 20 years of noodling away on the sofa while watching TV.
I wish that's what I would produce when I'm just like watching TV, and then hey, I'm gonna write a song now.
Well, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good, but I've been playing for 20 years. You're supposed to be pretty good if you've been playing for 20 years. Yeah,
I know people that have been playing for a while, and they can only do power chords, I think.
But yeah, I'm still a bit of a hack when it comes to improvising, so to speak. I can't really solo, just like I can't really sing particularly well. I do it because I'm the only one available.
Well, what was it? Your Hillary and Trump song brought up something interesting to me, where you're using the donkey for Trump and then the elephant for Hillary. What exactly do you see that's almost identical with the two of them, or the platforms themselves that they run on?
Well, there was a harebrained theory going around at the time that Trump was put there deliberately by someone behind the Hillary campaign to make the Republicans unelectable, which was hilarious to me because it's plausible but daft at the same time. And if that's what they did, it backfired horribly, much like it did in the South Park season. So I just wrote a song sort of based on that. That's why the lyrics sort of slowly tell this story of Hillary going, "Oh, I'll stand behind this absurdness and look like less of a fucking mugwump. Trump, Trump, Trump."
Yeah. So how do you think it is that she actually lost?
There's probably just more in one camp than there are in the other. But one camp controls more of the message. I mean, this situation was almost in reverse in the 80s in Britain. Everyone I know, almost everyone I spoke to in the 90s, hated Thatcher, and she was thought of as this complete ogre that fucked up the country in every way. And yet she got elected 3 terms in a row. Like, how do you explain that? More people voted for her than voted for the other guy. Yeah, even though the media at the time was very much going through this sort of, the alternative comedy was coming in the 80s, and obviously there was a lot of punk still going on, and rap and all grunge and that shit was coming in. So there was very much an anti-establishment message in the media, and yet the Conservatives kept on winning. And it's because if you control the media, you don't necessarily control the masses, because the masses aren't necessarily watching the media you want them to. Not even in the 80s, and certainly not now.
So what do you think the role of media and journalism has become, as opposed to, I guess, what the ideals are?
Well, yeah, apparently the public doesn't trust the media anymore. But I don't know. I don't know what we mean by the media anymore. I mean, this is an ongoing discussion about where the boundary is between new media, old media, and different splinter groups of the new media.
Yeah, I mean, I see tweets by Mike Cernovich. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think half the time he's losing his mind, and then the other half the time he makes like a half decent point, and then he screws it up by like the next tweet. Earlier today he was like, "Oh, the mainstream can't survive without us," or like, "They need us more than we need them," or something like that. Do you think there's any viability to that statement?
Oh yeah, of course. To some degree, the bottom line is the masses. I mean, we proved it democratically. But to some degree, the fight is fought more in the media than it is in the polls. Because Trump may have been elected, but you can't say he's dominating the airwaves. The airwaves are being dominated by anti-Trump messages. But he's the one, making executive orders and shit, so it swings and roundabouts. But yeah, it's getting so difficult to predict, because there's a lot of different ideas about how to approach advertisers. Because we've always been, we enjoy the fact that there's no middleman between the content creators and the audience. But now we have to get involved with the advertisers. The creators have to, without an agent or any of that shit, have to engage with advertisers and audiences, and it's getting very tricky. There's lots of ideas flying around, some good, some not so good. And I go, and that's only by consensus. I have no idea what's going on. I'm not an expert on anything, not even music. I'm just a hack, basically.
I swear that should be on a shirt for you. I'm just a hack, and then sell it for $19.99.
Yeah. See if you can make it as a hack. It's a good way to go, man.
Yeah.
A hack of all trades, if you will.
Actually, that's a pretty good slogan. I would buy that. And my buddy here agrees. So speaking of dealing with advertisers, the advertisers are having to deal with both sides right now. Something that just broke earlier was Pepsi released a seemingly completely harmless, I cannot emphasize how harmless this thing looked. A new commercial with Kendall Jenner, I think is her name, or Kylie Jenner, who knows. She's walking out into this big protest, and they're like in New York or something, right? And there's a little human chain of police, and they're dividing one end of, I guess, the park or the street, and then the protesters are on the other side. And she walks up to one of the policemen, hands him a Pepsi, and he's like, okay. So he opens it, he drinks it, he smiles. She goes back into the protest crowd. They all start dancing. And then he looks at the other guardsmen, and he goes, not so bad. And that's it. That is all that happened. And now there's like thousands of tweets of people like, oh my God, I drank this Pepsi, now I'm not racist anymore. Freaking Pepsi is tone deaf and all kinds of stuff. So is this hysteria ever going to die down? Or, I mean, what is this?
Advertising campaigns are supposed to be talked about. So Smart move by Pepsi if that's the idea. And like I said, I've been doing the Honey Badger show while this story's been breaking, so I'm largely out of the loop. But I can imagine people are calling this some kind of symbolic thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's related to the YouTube thing, but it sounds like it's periphery related, if anything. And they probably shot it months ago, right?
They shot it what?
They probably shot it months ago. I mean, ads
All
tend to take a long time to make. They're bloody expensive to make, so they should take a long time to make. So this is probably a coincidence. Most Pepsi adverts are something like that, right?
Yeah, and you know what?
They've been selling carbonated water that tastes like battery acid for ages, so they've had to get creative with the advertising. And they've been getting creative with advertising. They invented the modern vision of Santa Claus. Well, that's a kind of a myth. That's kind of an extended myth. But yeah, one of their ad campaigns was Santa Claus with the red suit and a beard and shit. And that's been, what we think of as Santa Claus ever since. There was loads of different, because he was Saint Nicholas merged with some other sort of Russian sort of magic mushroom myth. And there was loads of different versions of him until Coca-Cola gave us the one we know today, and they've been singing about I don't know, issues in ads for ages. So this is nothing new. Certainly nothing offensive.
How old is the Santa Claus that we know and love and is real?
I don't know. A couple of centuries at most, I should think. Saint Nicholas was a Turk. I recall. I wasn't there, but yeah. Who? And then I mentioned the magic mushroom myth, which is one of those factoids we only just discovered this millennia, that there was some kind of Siberian shaman dude who did a ritual where he ate some magic mushrooms and then some reindeer drank his magic mushroom laced wee, and they went off into the woods and brought back gifts of knowledge. And yeah, I've heard this fact sort of repeated by many people, some reputable, some not.
Yeah.
And that somehow, like I say, met head on with Saint Nicholas, this Turkish guy who I think, I don't even know what Saint Nicholas did. He's the patron saint of all kinds of things as well, like saints so often are.
I think. Yeah. Oh, go on.
No, we're already on a hell of a tangent. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, I remember being told that Santa Claus is based on a Russian myth, and the guy's dressed in all blue, whereas ours is dressed in all red. So create this scenario in my head where the Cold War started over this, where it's like, hey, we like that guy, we're just gonna make him red. And then the Russians were like, you know what, Cold War starts now. Like, you take one of ours, we'll take all of yours. Because that would tie in perfectly with the Democrats blaming everything on Russia these days. I mean, are you familiar with the Russian hacking stories and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they're blaming it all on the Russians because of the way they're hacking. They're able to make it look like the Russians did it, so they can use it as an excuse for anything. But I have no idea what's fake news now. You've got to look through 12 layers of fake news to get to anything resembling real news. So I'm reluctant to commit to anything.
Yeah, and there's this journalist, Michael Tracy, and he's fairly far on the left, I think.
The guy whose smart car crashed. That guy.
No. He's alive.
Oh.
The CIA didn't get him, or whoever. That's the one you're talking about, right? Where it's like it could have been hacked or something, and then he drove off the rail.
It's another harebrained theory that we don't want to say too much in case we sound like Alex Jones.
Well, yeah, okay. So something I really have to ask, and I always forget to ask people when we have them on, what is the whole George Soros thing? He's blamed for like everything. In my circle of right-wing friends and stuff, it's George Soros does everything. So Who is he, and what the hell is he actually doing?
He funds a lot of things, basically. He's got a huge amount of money, and he funds campaigns, particularly the Hillary campaign. I don't even know what he does. What is he? Some kind of media mogul, presumably.
He's a what?
Philanthropist.
But what does he do for money?
I don't know.
Okay, so nobody's really sure right now. I'll look him up. But yeah, it's like the Antifa riots and stuff. It's like, oh, it's all Soros, and you know, if the police don't act quick enough, it's like, oh, that's Soros, and the riots in Paris right now, it's like, oh, that's probably Soros funded. So I just want to know, is he actually funding anything outside of like direct political campaigns?
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guy, man. I just dick around and make people laugh.
It says he's an investor, a business magnate, and a philanthropist. So just investor, I guess. $25.2 billion net worth. That is.
I mean, if you got a lot of money and a lot of time on your hands, what would you do with it?
I would make people fight.
Would you call him an activist? I guess if anyone's an activist, George Soros is. I mean, what is activism? What is activism other than funding things and activating people? But the question is, what is he an activist of?
Yeah, well, you know, if he really is funding the Antifa stuff, I honestly can't fault him for that, because it's like, I mean, if I had that much money to the point where the fifth generation of my family wouldn't even know what to do with the money, you know, I want to fund people and see what they do. Like, let's just watch these people beat each other with sticks, like Stickman in Austin. Yeah, have you seen that guy?
Stickman in Austin? I don't recall.
They call him based Stickman. Look, let me send you a link to that one. I think he's going to court now for what he did, but it's
He was let off already.
oh, he really?
Hey, what's
yeah, my apologies. Anyway, away from that tangent, something I really wanted to ask you about was your take on Brexit.
Yeah, it took me a while to develop an opinion about it, and it wasn't until I started seeing all the Remain adverts all over, and the basic hypocrisy of the rich telling the poor what to think and never actually asking the poor what they think.
Is it that cut and dry?
No, obviously nothing's cut and dry any more than it is with the Trump thing. I mean, yeah, you can probably get all your answers from, you know, because there's a similar thing going on with Trump. Yeah, I mean, you'll get as many or as few answers as to what the hell happened and why. But yeah, for Brexit, it's mostly a sovereignty issue and an immigration issue. For the north of England, at least, it was about immigration. For the south, it was about sovereignty.
So do you still live in Britain?
I do, yes.
Okay, so every time I look at something from Paul Joseph Watson, it looks like the end of the world for London and the surrounding area. Are things actually changing that much around there?
Well, I lived there for 10 years. And it didn't change much in the time I was there. It's very multiracial, which, you know, is not necessarily a problem until it is. I've lived in, how many boroughs did I live in? 3 different boroughs I lived in while I was there. And yeah, it's like I say, there are areas in which I walk down the street and I find myself the only white person on a busy street. And sometimes it's because it's a mostly black area, and sometimes it's because it's a mostly Muslim area. So they're self-segregating. and it's a question of do they? I mean, of course they have the right to do that, and and you can expect them to do that. I mean, there's a Chinatown everywhere. There's a little whatever in every city if there's enough people to make that. But how many of these can we throw next to each other before we have a race war and we go, well, why the hell do we have a race war? Because we had a bunch of segregated communities next to each other, including Sikhs and Muslims. You're going to get a race war if you put Sikhs and Muslims together. So yeah, as they're saying, multiculturalism has failed, and it certainly looks like it's in the process of failing. I don't know when we'll be able to say that it's failed, because to some degree, the people in favor of it are going to be able to keep saying, well, it just hasn't succeeded yet. And how bad does it have to get before we go, okay, it's failed? And again, I don't know the answer to that either.
So when you say that it's failing, what are the, I guess, the indicators of that?
I suppose the self-segregation itself. I mean, the idea of multiculturalism is to be a melting pot. To actually learn from each other and develop, of some kind of common voice. And if there's communities that are integrating less with each new generation, because usually in the normal run of things, each generation integrates more. Like the second integrates more than the arriving generation, and the third integrates even more. But if there's groups that become less integral with each successive generation, then you only need to plot how that graph goes to see that they're going to reach a critical something or other. And most groups are very good at integrating, but some groups aren't.
It's interesting because right before this this broadcast, I have a class with an intersectional feminist, right? She's my professor, and we're going into critical theory of literature. And one of the lenses that she lectured about today was new historicism and multiculturalism and post-colonialism. And she was talking about the need for like constant revolution within a society, and I argued, hey, that's not a good thing at all. That would destroy a nation state from the inside out. And she's like, well, if you want your tinfoil hat and build a shelter, go for it. Be my guest. And I was like, well, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just, I just think it would destroy the fabric of a nation over a very large amount of time. And she said it was a good thing. In theory or in practice, can it be a good thing?
A constant state of revolution. This, we call it the circle of life because it's a revolution of sort. But or is that a revolution? I forget, but it revolves. But obviously, when you call it a revolution, you're referring to things like the French Revolution or or whatever revolution. And obviously, that kind of revolution going on forever would destroy a country. And this is largely what Marxism argues for and against at the same time. There's a constant state of revolution going on naturally, so we need to create a different constant state of revolution, perhaps counterclockwise, in order to prevent the revolution. And if the anti-clockwise people get more traction than the clockwise people, then we'll just have a counter-revolution forever. But yeah, people need to live, people need to die. Governments need to be elected and then be re-elected. So some things have to revolve. You need to get into what they're talking about when they say that, I suppose. It sounds like Marxism, but it could equally be, some form of capitalism they're talking about.
Well, she's a bit of an interesting character because she made fun of people that would wear the Che Guevara shirts, and on the same note, she was a big fan of the Frankfurt School. So I'm not exactly sure where she lies on that spectrum. Yeah, very, very odd in that sense. Oh, anyway, sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm in deep thought and I can't think of anything to say.
No, it's all good. I was thinking of Theresa May. I saw a picture or two pictures of her today. One saying that she refused to wear in Saudi Arabia, but then she was wearing one somewhere in like England. Um, what the hell?
I don't know. Maybe she saw what the Swedish ladies did and thought she'd make a stand.
No, not Le Pen. But yeah, it was like a before and after, I guess, because they were chronologically like the Saudi one I think was last year,
Oh, right.
and the England one where she's wearing a hijab and I guess in a mosque or something must have been like this year or late last year. But
well, I was just trying to think if there's a comparison of some sort. Are there establishments you have to walk in where you have to hide? I mean, no, I can't think of an example. Is there anything in the West where we have establishments where you're not allowed to show certain parts of your body where you walk in?
in the military, the women have to make their bun and then keep their lid on. I'm not.
Well, all right, court. like perhaps,
Yeah,
perhaps criminal court or something. Walking in with your nipples showing. that would be something that we're expected to adhere to, which is kind of an arbitrary moral rule. And I suppose I'm playing devil's advocate to some degree. Like, to what degree do you pay attention to the rules of the court you're going to? And I should point out, we should have no Sharia courts in Britain. So that comparison shouldn't be. Yeah, I should stop talking before I say something dumb.
No, I actually do want to ask you about that. Is Islam a problem for England?
Yes. Did you notice I didn't flinch? I think Islam's a problem for Muslims, especially, but it's generally a problem.
And how is that?
Well, because it hasn't reformed yet, because it's in dire need of a reform, and the problems we're having in the West with the combination of social network and ideological education, the same things happening in the Muslim world at a time before the main religion has really reformed. So they're going haywire as well, but in a crazier direction.
So, do you think there's any hope for compatibility?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, similarly, I could say, I think feminism fucks things up for everyone, especially feminists. But do I think there's any chance of feminism reforming? Well, yeah, anything can be reformed, but I suppose the question is, how much hope do I have? More for Islam than feminism, I think.
Really?
Because at least it's got a better track record, Islam, in particular, Islam's got very hairy over the last 100 years, particularly after the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and they went from belly dancers to burqas, as I once quoted.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so in theory, it could reform back to something else in a similarly fast time, but it's not. It's getting worse faster than it gets better. And it's a bit like comparing the Catholic Church with Nazis. Yeah. Nazis had their asses handed to them in a matter of less than a decade, whereas the Catholic Church has been around forever. feminists are a bit like the Nazis and Muslims are a bit like the Catholics in this analogy I'm doing. Feminists probably aren't going to last that much longer. They're gonna turn into a feeble, anemic shell of their past selves, probably in the next few generations. But obviously, Islam's going to hang around for much longer because there's over 1 billion of them, and many of them are very devoted.
Yeah.
For one thing, I don't think feminism is helping Islam to reform. That's something I really want to. I really need to stress to people who say, "Well, the Islamic world needs feminism." No, it doesn't. The Islamic world needs a reform of Islam, and not in the feminist direction, under any circumstances, in a human rights direction. Yeah, an inclusive human rights direction. Feminism is not an inclusive human rights direction. It's an explicitly exclusive human rights direction, one where you ignore men's rights and only focus on women's. It's not going to help. Sorry, it's never helped anyone.
Yeah, I honestly think that if Muslims were by and large white, feminists would be all over this thing.
Possibly.
Points because they're brown, and they're untouchable. It's maybe it has to do something with old school Orientalism, and they're trying to make up for that. I don't really understand, because it seems to be antithetical to feminism. But then there's Muslim women saying this is the most feminist religion there is out there. So, I mean, do you think feminists will ever combat Islam?
I think they did. In the first and second waves, I'm sure they were very much against that sort of thing. But now they found it's more lucrative to control white men than it is to try and crack down on brown men. No, I don't think it will. I think feminism's just going to get crazier and crazier as it spirals the drain, and as it does that, it's going to do completely loopy, sort of self-contradictory things all the way down. Like talking about hegemonic patriarchy in this country, and pretending there's no hegemonic, well, maybe not patriarchy, but certainly cis heteronormative things. They throw gays off roofs. They definitely do that.
Yeah,
that's exactly what you mean by cis heteronormative hegemony.
And they really do love raping boys. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, just telling our troops to stand down about it. That's awful. Because the priest raping or molesting boys jokes are still around today, but there's no freedom fighters raping boys jokes. And I honestly think it's a race thing. They just will not make fun of brown people unless they're Republican or conservative brown. Then it's
they just about got there with Boko Haram. Just because of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, there were a few jokes about Boko Haram. Hey, aren't those guys sexists? See, there's still misogyny in the world. Look at Boko Haram. And I don't know if you've seen The Red Pill, but there's a very good rebuttal of that whole point in there. The movie The Red Pill, not the Reddit thing.
Actually, how was that movie or documentary?
It's awesome. I think it's available now somewhere on the internet, and there's still screenings all over the place. There's one going on in Calgary right now. It's just sort of a comprehensive sort of compendium of men's issues as described by men's rights advocates and a few feminists. There's that sort of the story is in there as well.
Listening to the intro to the Honey Badger podcast, I heard them describing feminists saying that this is healthy for us to be challenged. Did that really happen, or was I just hearing things?
Yeah, well, I think that was a quote that Cassie gave in order to defend the film. look, there are some feminists saying, no, that this is precisely what documentaries are for, to take us out of our comfort zone and show us something we weren't aware of before. And obviously, that's going to have its pushback. And we all expected this, to be honest.
I'm honestly shocked that they've been able to screen the movie without problems.
Well, they haven't. They've had problems. Occasionally, particularly in Australia, quite a lot of places have got screenings shut down. But then they've successfully held other ones in other venues. In fact, it happened in Norwich as well. They couldn't do it in the first venue, but they took it to the second, and it all went swimmingly. We got some bloody good people organising these events. Thank you very much to you all, in case you're listening.
I wish we were much bigger effort into doing these things, and something that I hope that you tune into this Saturday. It should be during the afternoon your time. Is Bridge the Divide, and we're bringing in Roaming Millennial, Anthony Brian Logan, Vernaculus, Hunter Avalone, Son of American, and then journalists Michael Tracy and Alan Bakari. We're trying to bring both sides together and have them talk it out. I hope it doesn't crash and burn. So, and maybe in October we could get you to be on it. Although
I'm no journalist, if that's what it's about.
No.
I've never advertised myself as one.
But you are very tall though, so we could be on stage at the same time together because I'm very short.
Yes, I can stand at the back. I like it that way.
But yeah, I think you're an interesting character because you remind me a lot of Vernaculus. All know when both sides are being idiots, but you do it in a way that even if you're really pissed off about being criticized, it's kind of hilarious. The Trump and Hillary song, I thought that was awesome because it was like, oh, we've got all these problems. Who's gonna save it? Trump. Yeah, Trump. Trump's the only way out. And then, but yeah, I caught myself in that too. I was like, damn it, I did do that, didn't I?
I don't think I was being explicit as that. Most of my songs are just drunken rambles that are symbolic in several layers that nobody really understands. Because that's based on a song, on a children's song written, I think in the 50s or something, called "Nelly the Elephant," and the chorus actually goes, "Trump, Trump, Trump" at the end because it's about an elephant. And there was a popular punk cover of it in the 80s. And I was just sat there in my room one day and remembered, oh shit, that's that song that goes Trump, Trump, Trump. Right, I'm rewriting it right now. Rewriting all the lyrics except Trump, Trump, Trump.
Oh man, and so did you have a dog in the fight with the presidential election?
Like most people, not particularly fond of either candidate, but I'd much I'm not an American, but I'd much rather have a leader that we're allowed to criticize than a leader that we're not. A leader that you're not allowed to criticize is a sign of the end times. And for what else you could say about Trump, at least you've got a leader who you're allowed to criticize. and the evidence is right there. You'll do all the time. And why not? It's healthy.
Actually, I think we've had like 20 guests, and not one has had like a really harsh critique of President Trump. So can you just like lay us out all of your dirty laundry on Trump?
Well, I was slightly worried about his views on libel because we have very strict libel laws in Britain. I mean, we're quite famous for it. You can't say shit about McDonald's or they will sue you into the ground, even if you've got 2 beans to your name. Yeah, for instance, and he might fuck with laws to turn American libel law into something resembling British libel law, or I say all this, but Honey Badger Radio is still in the process of suing the Mary Sue for doing something kind of like that, for basically lying about us in the press and committing injurious falsehood, as we're calling it, which isn't a libel law; it's injurious falsehood. But it's difficult for me to criticize Trump when we're sort of treading that a similar sort of tightrope. But yeah, I can see Trump going too far with it because he is a very litigious chap.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think he takes a lot more flack than most people. But some of the tiffs that he gets into, I'm just like, oh God, like how am I going to defend this tomorrow? Because for me, he's under a microscope. When I go to class the next day and something stupid has happened on Twitter, I'm the first one to hear about it over and over and over. So I always have to research everything he does. So I'm like, okay, how do I defend this guy this time? But sometimes it's really difficult. I just want to like stay home from school.
Yeah, sometimes let the criticism happen, I guess. Maybe sometimes it's legit.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't bother me so much if they just weren't so smug about it. It's just like, oh.
Just pick out the best ones, or the worst ones, as it were. I mean, yeah, he tells a lot of lies, but you'll tell even more lies about him. So let's get his lies and your lies and see who lied worse.
Yeah, and the lying, that part is, oh man, just gotta sit there and take it sometimes. Like, oh, he said he was gonna do this and this, or I think one of his most prominent conservative critics is Ben Shapiro, and he's always like, he said he would bring back these jobs, but I mean that's retarded. How can that work? The manufacturing business is going this way. He's saying it's going to go back this way. There's no way in hell it's going to happen. And that always kind of leaves like a dark spot in my heart, because I'm just saddened by the, I guess, the implausibility of something that Trump said not happening at all. Like, there's no way that it could happen.
Yeah, there's lies along the lines of I'm going to build a wall. Like, you're obviously not. And there's lies along the lines of this was the most popular inauguration ever, which is a white lie at best. That didn't really hurt anyone. It's not like he fiddled the books.
Yeah.
It's not like he called the Guinness Book of Records and frauded his way into an entry.
Oh man, those records never last long though. Like most hot dogs eaten or something, and like the next year it's broken. And some of those people like spend their whole lives trying to get those records. And it's just a sad existence, I think.
And then there's lies like, I just grabbed him by the pussy and they let me. I'm pretty fucking sure that was just a lie, man.
Well, I mean, I think it was a joke. I mean, he started laughing. The other guy started laughing. But man, that created quite the firestorm.
Yeah, funnily enough, the one time he's not lying is when he said that, eh? Well, yeah. How fucking convenient.
Yeah, and then what was the other one? It was about his business.
The bankruptcy.
I can't remember, but yeah. Did you see the Rachel Maddow special on his tax returns?
I couldn't bring myself to. I didn't want to watch the train crash, so to speak. I heard everyone's take on it, and thought, okay, I know what happened.
It was beautiful. Just grade A stuff. I mean, she built it up so much, and I think I want to feel bad for her, but she's so smug.
And there is nothing like seeing a massively smug face turn into a massively disappointed face. It's called Schadenfreude. Although if it's justified, then it's called just desserts. It's a weird wavy line between those things.
Do you ever do debates?
I prefer not to. Like I said, I don't think fast enough for live chats, because all my videos are scripted. I avoid telling people this until it comes to a conversation like this, because it's like spoiling the magic. I'm quite good at acting, see. So I script my videos and then I read them out as though I'm coming up with it for the first time. But if I'm actually coming up with things for the first time, then I have to sit there for ages and think about it, which I can't do in a live debate.
Wow, that kind of ruins my worldview.
Sorry. Like I say, I try and keep the dream alive, but I don't want to lie to you either.
Oh, man. That next thing you're gonna tell me is Razor Fist does that too?
He might do, you know. He sounds remarkably sort of. He doesn't pause much. He's either a bloody fast thinker or he scripts some things. But there are absolutely some incredibly fast thinkers. Most people think faster than me. I'm just in awe of the people I do streams with. They could just open their mouths and just stuff comes out. I don't know. Well, I'm doing it now because I'm being interviewed and I'm supposed to. But when there's other people talking, I generally, yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, your videos are pretty crisp a lot of the time, and in an encyclopedia and a dictionary, and Google Translate sometimes for the words that you use. But yeah, I'm sure it's fine. Nobody's gonna notice. But
yeah, well, I like I say, I bill myself as an entertainer. So don't be too surprised if I turn out to be pulling all these strings beforehand.
do you subscribe to any political ideology, or do you enjoy shitposting too much to ever go to one side or the other?
Oh, I like that answer. So yeah, I'm going with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to be a centrist type. There are issues that I'm passionate about and issues that I'm less passionate about. I'm happy to call myself a drug rights advocate because I'm publicly passionate about ending the drug war, and happy to call myself a men's rights advocate because I'm publicly passionate about equal rights for men. Some of those things trigger people more than others. I don't know what that is. For some reason, men having rights triggers people way more than drugs having rights and guns having rights. It's a confusing world out there.
Yeah, I made a controversial statement in class a little while ago, saying that the police typically don't just assault people for no reason these days, and like half the class is up in uproar, and I mean, probably not because they've had their own experience with it, because most of the people that go to UTEP are pretty well off as far as El Paso goes, but I guess just social justice has gotten to them or something.
Well, I've seen videos of police appearing to do that, but that's because the internet compiles all the possible videos and gets the very worst ones. If you're saying it's typical, you have to know how many officers have body cams and dash cams, and how many of them are being filmed doing nothing but their job as they should do it. And if they typically, and if we got that much data, then we can say, yeah, it typically does not happen. Yes, it happens once or twice, and it looks outrageous on the internet, but you can't say it's typical if all you can find is a couple of examples out of what could be thousands of examples. You know.
Yeah, and do you have an issue with the rhetoric that Black Lives Matter pushes, or any of these other racially motivated groups push?
Yeah, I'm not fond of white nationalists or black nationalists or any of the guises they come under. And I think, I don't know if Black Lives Matter is necessarily black nationalism, but it's how much do they have to resemble Black Panthers before we say, okay, it's just as big a problem. And white nationalists will be a problem if and when they become just as big. But I don't know any universities that that have white nationalist groups, or certainly have white nationalist groups that go on marches on the university dollar. So not quite as big as a problem.
And where does Tommy Robinson fit in all of this?
I like Tommy. I mean, I've obviously he's been doing this for a bloody long time now. And when the EDL first came along, they were not popular because they did fill up with a lot of with a lot of undesirables, shall we call it, deplorables, as Hillary would call them. But Tommy got out of the EDL probably because it got a little bit out of hand. Because he's got principles and he sticks to his principles. So I respect him for that.
He was on Rebel Media the other day or yesterday. Man, people just hate him.
Of course they do. He was the leader of the EDL. He's gonna be hated forever, no matter how much he distances himself from it. And because there's this narrative in the air of don't be a racist, and if you say anything bad against Islam, then you're a racist already, because of this fucking Islamophobia narrative. It's bloody frustrating.
Yeah,
because there are white Muslims. They're all over the place now. People are converting.
Oh God. I mean, is there any getting back to being able to criticize religion without having racial attacks thrown at you?
Yeah, well, we don't have to. We can prevent any possible blasphemy laws. We can look at what's happening in Canada and say, hey, we don't want to go there. But that's how to reverse it. I don't know. We have to vote governments that don't do this nonsense, I suppose. I don't know. I thought we were already allowed to criticize religion. I thought we covered this. I thought we sorted this out during the Enlightenment.
Well, we didn't know at the time that there was this thing called brown people and that they were offended by everything, apparently. So rules change, You think you have it figured out. Suck on that, Galileo.
Yeah, Islam's not a race. It's a very simple statement, but people are deliberately obfuscating away from that obvious statement. Because it's an easy way to control people, just to say you're a racist. It appears to work. Well, we thought it worked, but it's lost them an election and a continent. Like I often refer to Brexit as an election, but it's not. No one got elected. It's just a vote.
We elected to leave.
Yes, I suppose.
Just about out of time. I'm so sorry. We finally got rolling, and damn it. Do you have any closing statements?
Not that I can think of. You got to give me something to spit roll with, or I'll just founder like I'm doing now.
Beards.
Beards are good, but
all right. Well,
sufficient but not necessary, shall we say?
That's fine words from a fine man.
Thank
you. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Isaac Yepes with the UTEP College Republicans, and we just sat down with DoctorRandomercam. He's on YouTube, Twitter, and probably some other stuff. He's a super interesting guy. Doesn't read a lot, but very expansive lexicon. Check him out. Yeah, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Word.
All right. Have a good one, man.